Welcome to episode 18, let's say it's 18, of Michael Reads from a Book, a series in which I read from a series of books. Today's book is a classic, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. We'll be reading from, let's say chapter 15. A Tempest in the School Teapot. "What a splendid day," said Anne, drawing on a long breath. "Isn't it just good to be alive on a day like this? I pity the people who aren't born yet from missing it. They might have good days, of course, but they can never have this one. And it's splendider still to have such a lovely way to go to school by, isn't it?" "It's a lot nicer than going around by the road. That is so dusty and hot," said Diana practically, peeping into her dinner basket and mentally calculating if the 3 juicy, toothsome raspberry tarts repositioning there were divided among 10 girls, how many bites each girl would have. We don't use the word toothsome enough. The little girls of Avalon's school always pooled their lunches, and to eat 3 raspberry tarts all alone, or even to share them only with one's best chum, would have forever and ever branded as awful, mean, the girl who did it. And the tarts were divided among 10 children, just got you enough to tantalize you. The way Anne and Diana went to school was a pretty one. Anne thought the walks to and from the school with Diana couldn't be improved upon even by the imagination. Going by the main road would have been so unromantic, but to go by Lover's Lane and Willowmere and Violet Vale and Birch Path was romantic, if ever anything was. Lover's Lane opened up below the orchard at Green Gables and stretched out far up into the woods, to the end of the Cuthbert farm. It was the way by which the cows were taken to the back pasture and the wood hauled home in the winter. Anne had named it Lover's Lane before she had been a month at Green Gables. "Not that lovers ever really walk there," she explained to Marilla, "but Diana and I are reading a perfectly magnificent book, and there's a Lover's Lane in it. So we want to have one too, and it's a very pretty name, don't you think? So romantic. We can imagine the lovers into it, you know. I like the lane because you can think out loud there without people calling you crazy." Anne started out alone in the morning, went down Lover's Lane as far as the brook. Here Diana met up with her, and the 2 girls went up on the lane under the leafy arch of the maples. "Maples are such sociable trees," said Anne. "They're always rustling and whispering to you, until they come to a rustic bridge. Then they leave the lane and walk through Mr. Barry's back field and past Willowmere. Beyond Willowmere came Violet Vale, a little green dimple in the shadow of Mr. Andrew Bell's big woods. "Of course there are no violets there now," Anne told Marilla, "but Diana says there are millions of them in spring. Oh, Marilla, can't you just imagine them? It always takes away my breath. I named it Violet Vale. Diane said she never saw the beat of me for hitting on fancy names for places. It's nice to be clever at something, isn't it? But Diana named the Birch Path. She wanted to, so I let her. But I'm sure I could have found something more poetical than plain Birch Path. Anyone can think of a name like that. But the Birch Path is one of the prettiest places in the whole world, Marilla." It was. Other people besides Anne thought so when they stumbled on it. It was a little, narrow, twisting path, winding down over a long hill straight through Mr. Bell's woods. Where the light came down, it sifted through so many emerald screens that it was as flawless as the heart of a diamond. It was fringed in all its length with slim young branches, white-stemmed and lissom boughs. Ferns and starflowers and wild lilies of the valley and scarlet tufts of pigeonberries grew thickly along it, and always there were delightful spiciness in the air, and music of bird calls, and the murmur and laugh of woodwinds in the trees overhead. Now and then you might see a rabbit skipping across the road if you were quiet, which, with Anne and Diane, happened about once in a blue moon. Down in the valley, the path came up to the main road, and then it was just up the spruce hill to the school. The Avonlea School was a whitewashed building, low in the eaves and wide in the windows, furnished inside with a comfortable, substantial, old-fashioned desk that opened and clicked shut, and were carved all over their lids with the initials and hieroglyphics of 3 generations of school children. The schoolhouse was set back from the road, and behind it was a dusky fir wood, and a brook where all the children put their bottles of milk in the morning to keep cool and sweet until dinner. Marilla had seen Anne start off to school on the first days of September with many secret misgivings. Anne was such an odd girl. How would she get along with the other children? And how on earth would she ever manage to hold her tongue during school hours? Things went better than Marilla feared, however. Anne came back home that evening in high spirits. "I think I'm going to like school here," she announced. "I don't think much of the master, though. He's all the time curling his mustache and making eyes at Prissy Andrews. Prissy's grown up, you know. She's 16 and studying for the entrance examination into Queen's Academy at Charlottetown next year. Tilty Boulter said the master is dead gone on her. She's got a beautiful complexion and curly brown hair, and she does it up so elegantly. She sits in the long seat at the back, and he sits there too most of the time, to explain her lessons, he says. But Ruby Gillis said that she saw him writing something on her slate, and when Prissy read it, she blushed as red as a beet and giggled, and Ruby Gillis said that she didn't believe it had anything to do with the lesson. And Shirley, don't let me hear you talking that way about your teacher again, said Marilla sharply. You don't go to school to criticize the master. I guess he can teach you something, and it's your business to learn. I want you to understand right off that you are not to come home telling tales of him. That's something I won't encourage. I hope you were a good girl. Indeed I was, said Anne comfortably. It wasn't so hard as you might imagine either. I sit with Diana. Our seat is right by the window, and we can look down to the lake of shining waters. There were a lot of nice girls in school, and we had a scrumptious fun time, playing at dinner. It's so nice to have a lot of little girls to play with, but of course I like Diana the best and always will. I adore Diana. I'm dreadfully far behind the others. They're all in the 5th book, and I'm only in the 4th. I feel that it's kind of a disgrace. But there's not one of them that has such an imagination as I have, and I soon found that out. We had reading and geography and Canadian history and diction today. Mr. Phillips said my spelling was disgraceful, and he held up my slate so that everyone could see it, marked all over. I felt so mortified, Marilla. He might have been politer to a stranger, I think. Ruby Gillis gave me an apple, and Sophia Sloane lent me a lovely pink card with "May I see you home" on it. I'm going to give it back to her tomorrow. And Tilly Bolton let me wear her bead ring all the afternoon. Can I have some of the bead rings off the old pincushion in the garret to make myself a ring? And oh, Marilla, Jane Andrews told me that Minnie McPherson told her that she heard Prissy Andrews tell Sarah Gillis that I had a very pretty nose. Marilla, that is the first compliment I've ever had in my life, and you can't imagine what a strange feeling it gives me. Marilla, have I a pretty nose? I know you'll tell me the truth. The mystery of Marilla's reaction to Anne's nose will have to be left for another day. Thanks for listening, and I guess I'll see you next time.